Virginia Woolf, an unwritten novel. Narrated by Kathy Slump. Such an expression of unhappiness was enough by itself to make one's eyes slide above the paper's edge to the poor woman's face, insignificant without that look, almost a symbol of human destiny with it. Life's what you see in people's eyes. Life's what they learn, and, having learnt it, never, though they seek to hide it, cease to be aware of what? That life's like that, it seems. 5 faces opposite, 5 mature faces, and the knowledge in each face. Strange, though, how people want to conceal it. Marks of reticence are on all those faces. Lips shut, eyes shaded, each one of the 5 doing something to hide or stultify his knowledge. One smokes, another reads, a third checks entries in a pocketbook. A 4th stares at the map of the line framed opposite. And the 5th, the terrible thing about the 5th is that she does nothing at all. She looks at life. Ah, but my poor unfortunate woman, do play the game. Do, for all our sakes, conceal it. As if she heard me, she looked up, shifted slightly in her seat, and sighed. She seemed to apologize, and at the same time to say to me, "If only you knew." Then she looked at life again. "But I do know," I answered silently, glancing at the Times for manners' sake. "I know the whole business. Peace between Germany and the Allied powers was yesterday officially ushered in at Paris. Signor Nitti, the Italian Prime Minister, a passenger train at Doncaster was in collision with a goods train. We all know. The Times knows. But we pretend we don't." My eyes had once more crept over the paper's rim. She shuddered, twitched her arm queerly to the middle of her back, and shook her head. Again I dipped into my great reservoir of life. "Take what you like," I continued. "Births, deaths, marriages, court circular, the habits of birds, Leonardo da Vinci, the Sandhills murder, high wages, and the cost of living. Oh, take what you like," I repeated. "It's all in the Times." Again, with infinite weariness, she moved her head from side to side until, like a top exhausted with spinning, it settled on her neck. The Times was no protection against such sorrow as hers, but other human beings forbade intercourse. The best thing to do against life was to fold the paper so that it made a perfect square, crisp, thick, impervious even to life. This done, I glanced up quickly, armed with a shield of my own. She pierced through my shield. She gazed into my eyes as if searching any sediment of courage at the depths of them and damping it to clay. Her twitch alone denied all hope, discounted all illusion. So we rattled through Surrey and across the border into Sussex. But with my eyes upon life, I did not see that the other travellers had left, one by one, till, save for the man who read, we were all alone together. Here was Three Bridges station. We drew slowly down the platform and stopped. Was he going to leave us? I prayed both ways. I prayed last that he might stay. At that instant, he roused himself, crumpled his paper contemptuously, like a thing done with, burst open the door, and left us alone. The unhappy woman, leaning a little forward, palely and colourlessly addressed me, talked of stations and holidays, of brothers at Eastbourne, and the time of year, which was, I forget now, early or late. But at last, looking from the window and seeing, I knew, only life, she breathed. Staying away, that's the drawback of it. And now we approach the catastrophe. My sister-in-law. The bitterness of her tone was like lemon on cold steel, and speaking not to me, but to herself, she muttered, "Nonsense," she would say. "That's what they all say." And while she spoke, she fidgeted as though the skin on her back were as a plucked fowl's in a poulterer's shop window. "Oh, that cow," she broke off nervously, as though the great wooden cow in the meadow had shocked her and saved her from some indiscretion. Then she shuddered, and then she made the awkward angular movement that I had seen before, as if, after the spasm, some spot between the shoulders burnt or itched. Then again she looked the most unhappy woman in the world, and I once more reproached her, though not with the same conviction, for if there were a reason, and if I knew the reason, the stigma was removed from life. "Sisters-in-law," I said. Her lips pursed as if to spit venom at the word. Pursed they remained. All she did was to take her glove and rub hard at a spot on the window pane. She rubbed as if she would rub something out forever, some stain, some indelible contamination. Indeed, the spot remained for all her rubbing, and back she sank with the shudder and the clutch of the arm I had come to expect. Something impelled me to take my glove and rub my window. There, too, was a little speck on the glass. For all my rubbing, it remained. And then the spasm went through me. I crooked my arm and plucked at the middle of my back. My skin, too, felt like the damp chicken's skin in the poulterer's shop window. One spot between the shoulders itched and irritated, felt clammy, felt raw. Could I reach it? Surreptitiously I tried. She saw me. A smile of infinite irony, infinite sorrow, flitted and faded from her face. But she had communicated, shared her secret, passed her poison. She would speak no more. Leaning back in my corner, shielding my eyes from her eyes, seeing only the slopes and hollows, greys and purples of the winter's landscape, I read her message, deciphered her secret, reading it beneath her gaze. "Hilda's the sister-in-law." "Hilda? Hilda? Hilda Marsh. Hilda, the blooming, the full-bosomed, the matronly." Hilda stands at the door as the cab draws up, holding a coin. Poor Minnie, more of a grasshopper than ever. Old cloak she had last year. Well, well, with 2 children these days, one can't do more. "No, Minnie, I've got it. Here you are, cabby." "None of your ways with me." "Come in, Minnie." "Oh, I could carry you, let alone your basket." So they go into the dining room. "Aunt Minnie, children." Slowly the knives and forks sink from the upright. Down they get. Bob and Barbara hold out hands stiffly. Back again to their chairs, staring between the resumed mouthfuls. But this we'll skip. Ornaments, curtains, trefoil china plate, yellow oblongs of cheese, white squares of biscuit. Skip. Oh, but wait. Halfway through luncheon, one of those shivers. Bob stares at her, spoon in mouth. "Get on with your pudding, Bob." But Hilda disapproves. Why should she twitch? Skip, skip, till we reach the landing on the upper floor. Stairs brass-bound, linoleum worn. Oh yes, little bedroom looking out over the roofs of Eastbourne. Zigzagging roofs like the spines of caterpillars, this way, that way, striped red and yellow with blue-black slating. Now, Minnie, the door's shut. Hilda heavily descends to the basement. You unstrap the straps of your basket, lay on the bed a meagre nightgown, stand side by side, furred felt slippers. The looking glass. No, you avoid the looking glass. Some methodical disposition of hat pins. Perhaps the shell box has something in it. You shake it. It's the pearl stud there was last year, that's all. And then the sniff, the sigh, the sitting by the window. 3 o'clock on a December afternoon, the rain drizzling, one light low in the skylight of a drapery emporium, another high in a servant's bedroom. This one goes out. That gives her nothing to look at. A moment's blankness. Then, what are you thinking? Let me peep across at her opposite. She's asleep or pretending it. So what would she think about sitting at the window at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Health? Money? Hills? Her God? Yes, sitting on the very edge of the chair, looking over the roofs of Eastbourne, Minnie Marsh prays to God. That's all very well, and she may rub the pain too, as though to see God better. But what God does she see? Who's the God of Minnie Marsh? The God of the back streets of Eastbourne? The God of 3 o'clock in the afternoon? I, too, see roofs. I see sky. But, oh dear, this seeing of gods. More like President Kruger than Prince Albert. That's the best I can do for him. And I see him on a chair, in a black frock coat. Not so very high up either. I can manage a cloud or two for him to sit on. And then his hand, trailing in the clouds, holds a rod. A truncheon, is it? Black, thick, thorned. A brutal old bully. Minnie's God. Did he send the itch and the patch and the twitch? Is that why she prays? What she rubs on the window is the stain of sin. Oh, she committed some crime. I have my choice of crimes. The woods flit and fly. In summer there are bluebells. In the opening there, when spring comes, primroses. A parting, was it 20 years ago? Vows broken? Not Minnie's. She was faithful. How she nursed her mother. All her savings on the tombstone. Wreaths under glass, daffodils in jars. But I'm off the track. A crime. They would say she kept her sorrow, suppressed her secret. Her sex, they'd say, the scientific people. But what flummery to saddle her with sex. No, more like this. Passing down the streets of Croydon 20 years ago, the violet loops of ribbon in the draper's window, spangled in the electric light, catch her eye. She lingers, past 6. Still, by running, she can reach home. She pushes through the glass swing door. It's sale time. Shallow trays brim with ribbons. She pauses, pulls this, fingers that, with the raised roses on it. No need to choose, no need to buy, and each tray with its surprises. We don't shut till 7. And then it is 7. She runs, she rushes, home she reaches, but too late. Neighbours, the doctor, baby brother, the kettle, scalded, hospital, dead, or only the shock of it, the blame. Ah, but the detail matters nothing. It's what she carries with her, the spot, the crime, the thing to expiate, always there between her shoulders. Yes, she seems to nod to me. It's the thing I did. Whether you did or what you did, I don't mind. It's not the thing I want. The draper's window looped with violet, that'll do. A little cheap, perhaps, a little commonplace, since one has a choice of crimes. But then, so many. Let me peep across again, still sleeping or pretending sleep. White, worn, the mouth closed, a touch of obstinacy, more than one would think. No hint of sex. So many crimes aren't your crime. Your crime was cheap. Only the retribution solemn. For now the church door opens. The hard wooden pew receives her. On the brown tiles she kneels. Every day, winter, summer, dusk, dawn. Here she's at it. Praise. All her sins fall, fall, forever fall. The spot receives them. It's raised, it's red, it's burning. Next she twitches. Small boys point. Bob at lunch today. But elderly women are the worst. Indeed, now you can't sit praying any longer. Kruger's sunk beneath the clouds, washed over as with a painter's brush of liquid grey, to which he adds a tinge of black. Even the tip of the truncheon gone now. That's what always happens. Just as you've seen him, felt him, someone interrupts. It's Hilda now. How you hate her. She'll even lock the bathroom door overnight too, though it's only cold water you want. And sometimes, when the night's been bad, it seems as if washing helped. And John at breakfast, the children. Meals are worst. And sometimes there are friends. Ferns don't altogether hide 'em. They guess too. So out you go along the front, where the waves are grey, and the papers blow, and the glass shelters green and draughty, and the chairs cost 2pence, too much, for there must be preachers along the sands. Ah, that's a nigger, that's a funny man, that's a man with parakeets. Poor little creatures. Is there no one here who thinks of God? Just up there over the pier with his rod. But no, there's nothing but grey in the sky, or if it's blue, the white clouds hide him. And the music, it's military music. And what they are fishing for. Do they catch them? How the children stare. Well then, home a back way. Home a back way. The words have meaning. Might have been spoken by the old man with whiskers. No, he didn't really speak. But everything has meaning. Placards leaning against doorways, names above shop windows, red fruit in baskets, women's heads in the hairdressers, all say Minnie Marsh. But here's a jerk. Eggs are cheaper. That's what always happens. I was heading her over the waterfall, straight for madness, when, like a flock of dream sheep, she turns t'other way and runs between my fingers. Eggs are cheaper. Tethered to the shores of the world, None of the crimes, sorrows, rhapsodies, or insanities for poor Minnie Marsh. Never late for luncheon, never caught in a storm without a mackintosh, never utterly unconscious of the cheapness of eggs. So she reaches home, scrapes her boots. Have I read you right? But the human face at the top of the fullest sheet of print holds more, withholds more. Now, eyes open, she looks out. And in the human eye, how do you define it? There's a break, a division, so that when you've grasped the stem, the butterfly's off. The moth that hangs in the evening over the yellow flower. Move, raise your hand, off, high, away. I won't raise my hand. Hang still, then. Quiver, life, soul, spirit, whatever you are of Minnie Marsh. I too on my flower, the hawk over the down, alone, or what were the worth of life? To rise, hang still in the evening, in the midday, hang still over the down, the flicker of a hand, off, up, then poised again, alone, unseen, seeing all so still down there, all so lovely. None seeing, none caring. The eyes of others, our prisons, their thoughts, our cages, air above, air below, and the moon and immortality. Oh, but I drop to the turf. Are you down too, you in the corner? What's your name, woman? Minnie Marsh? Some such name as that? There she is, tight to her blossom, opening her handbag from which she takes a hollow shell, an egg. Who was saying that eggs were cheaper, you or I? Oh, it was you who said it on the way home, you remember, when the old gentleman, suddenly opening his umbrella, was sneezing, was it? Anyhow, Kruger went, and you came home a back way, and scraped your boots. Yes. And now you lay across your knees a pocket handkerchief into which drop little angular fragments of eggshell. Fragments of a map, a puzzle. I wish I could piece them together. If you would only sit still. She's moved her knees. The map's in bits again. Down the slopes of the Andes, the white blocks of marble go bounding and hurtling, crushing to death a whole troop of Spanish muleteers with their convoy. Drake's booty, gold and silver. But to return. To what? To where? She opened the door, and putting her umbrella in the stand, that goes without saying, so too the whiff of beef from the basement, ... But what I cannot thus eliminate, what I must, head down, eyes shut, with the courage of a battalion and the blindness of a bull, charge and disperse are, indubitably, the figures behind the ferns, commercial travellers. There I've hidden them all this time in the hope that somehow they'd disappear, or better still, emerge, as indeed they must, if the story's to go on gathering richness and rotundity, destiny and tragedy, as stories should, rolling along, with it 2, if not 3 commercial travellers and a whole grove of aspidistra. The fronds of the aspidistra only partly concealed the commercial traveller. Rhododendrons would conceal him utterly, and into the bargain give me my fling of red and white, for which I starve and strive. But rhododendrons in Eastbourne in December on the Marshes table. No, I dare not. It's all a matter of crusts and cruets, frills and ferns. Perhaps there'll be a moment later by the sea. Moreover, I feel, pleasantly pricking through the green fretwork and over the glacis of cut glass, a desire to peer and peep at the man opposite. One's as much as I can manage. James Mugridge, is it, whom the Marshes called Jimmy? Minnie, you must promise not to twitch till I've got this straight. James Mugridge travels in, shall we say, buttons? But the time's not come for bringing them in, the big and the little on the long cards, some peacock-eyed, others dull gold, Cairngorm's son, and others coral sprays. But I say the time's not come. He travels, and on Thursdays, his Eastbourne day, takes his meal with the Marshes. His red face, his little steady eyes, by no means altogether commonplace, his enormous appetite, that's safe, he won't look at Minnie till the bread's swamped the gravy dry. Napkin tucked diamond-wise. But this is primitive, and whatever it may do the reader, don't take me in. Let's dodge to the Mugridge household, set that in motion. Well, the family boots are mended on Sundays by James himself. He reads truth. But his passion? Roses. And his wife, a retired hospital nurse. Interesting. For God's sake, let me have one woman with a name I like. But no, she's of the unborn children of the mind, illicit, nonetheless loved, like my rhododendrons. How many die in every novel that's written, the best, the dearest, while Mugridge lives? It's life's fault. Here's Minnie eating her egg at the moment, opposite and t'other end of the line. Are we past Lewis? There must be Jimmy, or what's her twitch for? There must be Mugridge, life's fault. Life imposes her laws. Life blocks the way. Life's behind the fern. Life's the tyrant. Oh, but not the bully. No, for I assure you, I come willingly. I come wooed by heaven knows what compulsion across ferns and cruets, tables splashed and bottles smeared. I come irresistibly to lodge myself somewhere on the firm flesh, in the robust spine, wherever I can penetrate or find foothold on the person, in the soul of Mugridge the man. The enormous stability of the fabric, the spine tough as whalebone, straight as oak tree, the ribs radiating branches, the flesh taut tarpaulin, the red hollows, the suck and regurgitation of the heart, while from above meat falls in brown cubes and beer gushes to be churned to blood again. And so we reach the eyes. Behind the aspidistra they see something, black, white, dismal. Now the plate again. Behind the aspidistra they see elderly woman, Marcia's sister, Hilda's more my sort. The tablecloth now. Marsh would know what's wrong with Morris's. Talk that over. Cheese has come. The plate again. Turn it round. The enormous fingers. Now the woman opposite. Marsh's sister, not a bit like Marsh. Wretched, elderly female. You should feed your hens. God's truth, what set her twitching? Not what I said. Dear, 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 these elderly women. Dear, dear. Yes, Minnie, I know you've twitched. But one moment, James Mugridge. Dear, 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 how beautiful the sound is, the knock of a mallet on seasoned timber, like the throb of the heart on an ancient whaler when the seas press thick and the green is clouded. Dear, dear, what a passing bell for the souls of the fretful to soothe them and solace them, lap them in linen, saying, so long, good luck to you. And then, what's your pleasure? For though Mugridge would pluck his rose for her, that's done, that's over. Now, what's the next thing? Madam, you'll miss your train, for they don't linger. That's the man's way, that's the sound that reverberates. That's St. Paul's and the motor omnibuses. But we're brushing the crumbs off. Oh, Mugridge, you won't stay? You must be off? Are you driving through Eastbourne this afternoon in one of those little carriages? Are you the man who's walled up in green cardboard boxes and sometimes has the blinds down and sometimes sits so solemn staring like a sphinx, and always there's a look of the sepulchral, something of the undertaker, the coffin and the dusk about horse and driver? Do tell me. But the doors slammed. We shall never meet again. Mugridge, farewell. Yes, yes, I'm coming, right up to the top of the house. One moment I'll linger. How the mud goes round in the mind. What a swirl these monsters leave. The water's rocking, the weeds waving and green here, black there, striking to the sand, till by degrees the atoms reassemble. The deposit sift itself, and again through the eyes one sees clear and still, and there comes to the lips some prayer for the departed, some obsequy for the souls of those one nods to, the people one never meets again. James Mugridge is dead now, gone forever. Well, Minnie, I can face it no longer. If she said that. Let me look at her. She is brushing the eggshell into deep declivities. She said it, certainly, leaning against the wall of the bedroom and plucking at the little balls which edge the claret-coloured curtain. But when the self speaks to the self, who is speaking? The entombed soul, the spirit driven into the central catacomb, the self that took the veil and left the world. A coward, perhaps, yet somehow beautiful, as it flits with its lantern restlessly up and down the dark corridors. I can bear it no longer, her spirit says. That man at lunch, Hilda, the children. Oh, heavens, her sob. It's the spirit wailing its destiny, the spirit driven hither, thither, lodging on the diminishing carpets, meagre footholds, shrunken shreds of all the vanishing universe. Love, life, faith, husband, children. I know not what splendours and pageantries glimpsed in girlhood. Not for me, not for me. But then the muffins, the bald elderly dog, bead mats, I should fancy, and the consolation of underlinen. If Minnie Marsh were run over and taken to hospital, nurses and doctors themselves would exclaim, "There's the vista and the vision. There's the distance, the blue spot at the end of the avenue, while, after all, the tea is rich, the muffin hot. And the dog? Benny, to your basket, sir, and see what mother's brought you." So, taking the glove with the worn thumb, defying once more the encroaching demon of what's called going in holes, you renew the fortifications, threading the grey wool, running it in and out. Running it in and out, across and over, spinning a web through which God himself, hush, don't think of God. How firm the stitches are. You must be proud of your darning. Let nothing disturb her. Let the light fall gently, and the clouds show an inner vest of the first green leaf. Let the sparrow perch on the twig, and shake the raindrop hanging to the twig's elbow. Why look up? Was it a sound? A thought? Oh, heavens! Back again to the thing you did, the plate glass with the violet loops. But Hilda will come. Ignominies, humiliations. Oh, close the breach. Having mended her glove, Minnie Marsh lays it in the drawer. She shuts the drawer with decision. I catch sight of her face in the glass. Lips are pursed. Chin held high. Next, she laces her shoes. Then she touches her throat. What's your brooch? Mistletoe or merrythought? And what is happening? Unless I'm much mistaken, the pulse is quickened. The moment's coming. The threads are racing. Niagara's ahead. Here's the crisis. Heaven be with you. Down she goes. Courage, courage. Face it. Be it. For God's sake, don't wait on the mat now. There's the door. I'm on your side. Speak. Confront her. Confound her soul. Oh, I beg your pardon. Yes, this is Eastbourne. I'll reach it down for you. Let me try the handle. But, Minnie, though we keep up pretences, I've read you right. I'm with you now. That's all your luggage? Much obliged, I'm sure. But why do you look about you? Hilda won't come to the station, nor John. And Mugridge is driving at the far side of Eastbourne. I'll wait by my bag, ma'am. That's safest. He said he'd meet me. Oh, there he is. That's my son. So they walk off together. Well, but I'm confounded. Surely, Minnie, you know better. A strange young man. Stop. I'll tell him. Minnie, Miss Marsh. I don't know, though. There's something queer in her cloak as it blows. Oh, but it's untrue. It's indecent. Look how he bends as they reach the gateway. She finds her ticket. What's the joke? Off they go, down the road, side by side. Well, my world's done for. What do I stand on? What do I know? That's not Minnie. There never was Mugridge. Who am I? Life's bare as bone. And yet the last look of them, he stepping from the curb and she following him round the edge of the big building, brims me with wonder, floods me anew. Mysterious figures, mother and son. Who are you? Why do you walk down the street? Where tonight will you sleep? And then tomorrow? Oh, how it whirls and surges, floats me afresh. I start after them. People drive this way and that. The white light splutters and pours. Plate glass windows, carnations, chrysanthemums, ivy in dark gardens. Milk carts at the door. Wherever I go, mysterious figures, I see you, turning the corner, mothers and sons. You. I hasten, I follow. This, I fancy, must be the sea. Grey is the landscape, dim as ashes. The water murmurs and moves. If I fall on my knees, if I go through the ritual, the ancient antics, it's you, unknown figures, you I adore. If I open my arms, it's you I embrace, you I draw to me, adorable world. Virginia Woolf. Adeline Virginia Woolf, née Stephen, 25 January 1882 to 28 March 1941, was an English writer who is considered one of the foremost modernists of the 20th century and a pioneer in the use of stream of consciousness as a narrative device. Born in an affluent household in Kensington, London, she attended King's College London and was acquainted with the early reformers of women's higher education. Having been homeschooled for much of her childhood, mostly in English classics and Victorian literature, Woolf began writing professionally in 1900. During the interwar period, Woolf was a significant figure in London literary society and a central figure in the influential Bloomsbury group of intellectuals. She published her first novel, titled The Voyage Out, in 1915, through the Hogarth Press, a publishing house that she established with her husband, Leonard Woolf. Her best-known works include the novels Mrs. Dalloway, 1925, To the Lighthouse, 1927, and Orlando, 1928, and the book-length essay A Room of One's Own, 1929, with its dictum, "A woman must have money and a room of her own if she is to write fiction." Woolf became one of the central subjects of the 1970s movement of feminist criticism, and her works have since garnered much attention and widespread commentary for inspiring feminism, an aspect of her writing that was unheralded earlier. Her works are widely read all over the world and have been translated into more than 50 languages. She suffered from severe bouts of mental illness throughout her life and took her own life by drowning in 1941 at the age of 59. Works. Woolf is a major novelist and one of the pioneers among modernist writers using stream of consciousness as a narrative device, alongside her contemporaries Marcel Proust, Dorothy Richardson, and James Joyce. Woolf's reputation declined sharply after World War II, but her importance was re-established with the growth of feminist criticism in the 1970s. She began writing professionally in 1900. The first of her writings to be accepted for publication, Haworth, November 1904, a journalistic account of a visit to the Bronte family home at Haworth, was published anonymously in a women's supplement to a clerical journal, The Guardian, in December 1904. From 1905, she wrote for the Times literary supplement. Her first novel, The Voyage Out, was published in 1915 by her half-brother's imprint, Gerald Duckworth and Company Limited. This novel was originally titled Melimbrosia, but Woolf repeatedly changed the draft. An earlier version of The Voyage Out has been reconstructed by Woolf scholar Louise de Salvo and is now available to the public under the intended title. De Salvo argues that many of the changes Woolf made in the text were in response to changes in her own life. Woolf went on to publish novels and essays as a public intellectual to both critical and popular acclaim. Much of her work was self-published through the Hogarth Press. Virginia Woolf's peculiarities as a fiction writer have tended to obscure her central strength. She is arguably the major lyrical novelist in the English language. Her novels are highly experimental. A narrative, frequently uneventful and commonplace, is refracted, and sometimes almost dissolved, in the character's receptive consciousness. Intense lyricism and stylistic virtuosity fuse to create a world overabundant with auditory and visual impressions. The intensity of Virginia Woolf's poetic vision elevates the ordinary, sometimes banal settings, often wartime environments, of most of her novels. For example, Mrs. Dalloway, 1925, centers on the efforts of Clarissa Dalloway, a middle-aged society woman, to organize a party, even as her life is paralleled with that of Septimus Warren Smith, a working-class veteran who has returned from the First World War, bearing deep psychological scars. To the Lighthouse, 1927, is set on 2 days, 10 years apart. The plot centers on the Ramsay family's anticipation of and reflection upon a visit to a lighthouse and the connected familial tensions. One of the primary themes of the novel is the struggle in the creative process that beset painter Lily Briscoe while she struggles to paint in the midst of the family drama. The novel is also a meditation upon the lives of a nation's inhabitants in the midst of war and of the people left behind. It also explores the passage of time and how women are forced by society to allow men to take emotional strength from them. Orlando, 1928, is one of Virginia Woolf's lightest novels, a parodic biography of a young nobleman who lives for 3 centuries without aging much past 30, but who does abruptly turn into a woman. The book is in part a portrait of Woolf's lover, Vita Sackville West. It was meant to console Vita for the loss of her ancestral home, Knowle House, though it is also a satirical treatment of Vita and her work. In Orlando, the techniques of historical biographers are being ridiculed. The character of a pompous biographer is being assumed in order for it to be mocked. The Waves, 1931, presents a group of 6 friends whose reflections, which are closer to recitatives than to interior monologues proper, create a wave-like atmosphere that is more akin to a prose poem than to a plot-centered novel. Flush, a biography, 1933, is a part fiction, part biography of the Cocker Spaniel owned by Victorian poet Elizabeth Barrett Browning. The book is written from the dog's point of view. Woolf was inspired to write this book from the success of the Rudolph Bézier play, The Barretts of Wimpole Street. In the play, Flush is on stage for much of the action. The play was produced for the first time in 1932 by the actress Catherine Cornell. Her last work, Between the Acts, 1941, sums up and magnifies Woolf's chief preoccupations, the transformation of life through art, sexual ambivalence, and meditation on the themes of flux of time and life, presented simultaneously as corrosion and rejuvenation, all set in a highly imaginative and symbolic narrative encompassing almost all of English history. This book is the most lyrical of all her works, not only in feeling, but in style, being chiefly written in verse. While Woolf's work can be understood as consistently in dialogue with the Bloomsbury Group, particularly its tendency, informed by G.E. Moore among others, towards doctrinaire rationalism, it is not a simple recapitulation of the coteries' ideals. Woolf's works have been translated into over 50 languages by writers such as Jorge Luis Borges and Marguerite Yourcenar. After completing the manuscript of her last posthumously published novel, Between the Acts, Woolf fell into a deep depression similar to that which she had earlier experienced. The onset of World War II, the destruction of her London home during the Blitz, and the cool reception given to her biography of her late friend Roger Fry all worsened her condition until she was unable to work. When Leonard enlisted in the Home Guard, he obtained the disapproval of Virginia, who held fast to her pacifism and criticized her husband for wearing what she considered to be the silly uniform of the Home Guard. After World War II began, Woolf's diary was consumed with an obsession with death, a subject that figured more and more as her mood darkened. On 28 March 1941, Woolf drowned herself by filling her overcoat pockets with stones and walking into the River Ouse near her home. Her body was not found until 18 April. Her husband buried her cremated remains beneath an elm tree in the garden of Monk's house, their home in Rodmell, Sussex. In her suicide note, addressed to her husband, she wrote, "Dearest, I feel certain that I am going mad again. I feel we can't go through another of those terrible times, and I shan't recover this time. I begin to hear voices, and I can't concentrate. So I am doing what seems the best thing to do. You have given me the greatest possible happiness. You have been in every way all that anyone could be. I don't think two people could have been happier till this terrible disease came. I can't fight any longer. I know that I am spoiling your life, that without me you could work, and you will, I know. You see, I can't even write this properly. I can't read. What I want to say is, I owe all the happiness of my life to you. You have been entirely patient with me and incredibly good. I want to say that. Everybody knows it. If anybody could have saved me, it would have been you. Everything has gone from me but the certainty of your goodness. I can't go on spoiling your life any longer. I don't think two people could have been happier than we have been."